Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. It's Monday, December 22nd. We just spoke with Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, 4 offensive players. As mandated by the Cotton Bowl, the playoff gets involved. They say you got to talk. We're going to have defensive interviews on Monday evening. We'll have a separate show on that. But Bill, you and I wanted to chop it up a little bit about what we heard from Ryan Day and these offensive players, especially receiver Jeremiah Smith. And just to reset everything, thanks, everybody, for your patience over the weekend. I was out of town. Bill is now out of town with the family, but we're here with you guys, and that's the important thing. We're here to talk ball, and we're like getting into it's like Cotton Bowl time, baby.
It is Cotton Bowl time. Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because we know who Ohio State's playing. We get to talk to some people this week, but then there's another break for Christmas. Ohio State also, they're practicing today and tomorrow, and then they'll get out of town for a little bit and reconvene, I think, on the 27th, right? Back in Columbus.
I think 26. Maybe practice
26.
on the 26th. I think 2 days off.
Yeah. I don't think guys are like, flying back to California for Christmas or anything like that. But some time off, I think, deserved time off for the holidays as well. So we're gearing up for it, but I would just caution people to not go full bore because you're going to run out of steam before the game's here.
Yeah. So we're going to have a lot of stuff. We'll be in Texas starting on the 28th. Again, thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, drop a review on Apple Podcasts, tell a friend, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on the podcast. If you want to find us on our Substack at billanddougosu.substack.com, we certainly would invite you there as well. 3 major pieces of information I think came out of this. The first is Ryan Day said he's calling plays for the Cotton Bowl. That was definitive. It's what we expected. It's kind of what we knew. You had written about this on our Substack, Bill. It was what you strongly felt. It's kind of what Ryan Day said, right? Like right after the Big Ten championship game and that week of prep for the Big Ten championship game where Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator, had taken the South Florida head coaching job. That was a tough week. I think we were like 95% down this road, but Ryan Day officially made it so head coach Ryan Day is calling plays against Miami.
He is. It was even funny to me, though, the way that he said it. It was not like I am the play caller now. It was it will be my decision what calls go into the game, which I thought was like a very interesting sort of convoluted way to say I am the play caller now. Like, I get it. I think he's like trying to walk a little bit of a line here and maybe like not disrespectful is not the right word, but just like handle this situation with class, I think, right? And which is fine. But it's not surprising at all, no, that this felt like the logical step and in some ways I think is specific to Ohio State logical step. I was having some back and forth with some people in the Substack chat, billanddougosu.substack.com, about this situation, and I understand people being like a little on edge about it, but it's not like Brian Hartline is not the first coordinator to take a head coaching job while his team was trying to compete for a championship. In fact, he's not the only one doing it in this playoff. So it's not like this is uncharted territory for anybody. But I think Ohio State is uniquely positioned with a guy like Hartline, who is the play caller, yes, but still learning to be the play caller. And Ryan Day, who like does this. This is why he got the job in the first place. So they just have this natural sort of fail-safe that exists. So it was always head at this point. I guess the thing that I was mostly curious of is whether or not Ryan Day would say it, because he doesn't have to. But he kind of made it clear on Monday. He's going to be the guy who's calling the plays.
I don't think it's anything to be worried about. And I think maybe you and I think it's actually, all things being equal, perhaps better for Ohio State that in the playoff for these 3 games, if they keep winning, Ryan Day is calling the plays.
I don't think it's anything to worry about. And I agree with you that it probably is better. The one thing that I'm not worried about, I'm curious about, and I actually liked Ryan Day's answer about it. Just like this idea, like what do you do in between series? If you're the head coach who's calling the plays, are you only adjusting offensively in between series, or do you have your eyes up, as Ryan Day said it? Like, are you not staring at your play sheet on the sideline? You're aware of what's happening on the field with the defense. If you got to give them a timeout, you're there and ready to call them a timeout. You're watching the flow of the game to seeing how you're being attacked. He even said like you're watching the other sideline sometimes to kind of see what the vibes are over there. That we all know this. There's a lot that goes into being a game day manager. And for the last basically 2 years, Ryan Day has kind of been able to do that almost exclusively. The 5 years prior to that, he was the play caller and frankly didn't always do a great job of being the game manager. So like now these like two versions of him coming together in this playoff, I think is fascinating. But I do think it can work. Yeah, and I like the fact that I didn't say to him, who's going to call the timeout when you need to call a timeout on defense. I just said like, hey, you used to do this thing. Now you're doing this different thing. And now you sort of have to do both. What do you think about that? And sort of the first thing he said was, you got to have your eyes up. So the fact that his mind went there right away for me was like a little reassuring that like, okay, I think he's got a pretty good handle on what this needs to look like.
And just so you know, just because Philly Billy is out of town doesn't mean Philly Billy is not bringing it at the news conference Tuesday afternoon or Monday morning. It was live people in the room, and then they would go to the Zoom, and it's supposed to be like all these national people who get to chime in, and it's always like, we now go to Bill Landis. Bill Landis, go ahead. And Bill Landis jumps right in. So you were the one who really got that great answer from Ryan Day about the eyes up situation. And I think eyes up is both literal and figurative, right? So it's literal on game days, but I think it's figurative the other 6 days of the week and the 365 days of the year. That if you are so locked in on being a play caller, are your eyes up for your program and your culture year round? And that is what I was most interested in the should Ryan Day give up play calling discussion. That if you're just doodling plays all the time and you're thinking like an OC, I think you're leaving something out. You're missing things with the vibes of your team, with the mental preparation. Are they up? Are they down? Are they just making sure everybody's feeling good and behaving correctly and all those things? And it's all 105. It's not just the offensive players. And so I think that is a bigger deal 365 days of the year. And that's why you should have a play caller so that Ryan Day can do that. For a month, I think it's fine. And I almost think maybe it's good. And when your play caller is a first-year play caller, and Brian Hartline, who has never done it before, and now Brian Hartline as a first-year play caller, can you win a national championship? I don't know. But now that's not the question anymore. It's Ryan Day, who's done this before. Can you win a national championship? It's almost like, again, it's not a theory that I necessarily agree with, but in 2014, Ohio State had a regular season quarterback and a playoff quarterback. And maybe you want JT Barrett for the 12, but maybe you want Cardale Jones for the 2 to get you over the top, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe you want Brian Hartline for the 12 so Ryan Day can do other things. But I think maybe you want Ryan Day for the 3 to get you over the top. So I think this is – but if Brian Hartline wasn't leaving, you couldn't do this. Like, of course, Brian Hartline has to call plays. But I think rather – and this is not just to be like silver lining, everything is perfect. I actually think if you could design it, I think you might design Ryan Day does not call plays during the regular season, but in the postseason, he actually kind of does. But you can't do that without angering the play caller, except the play caller's leaving, so it's all good. So Ryan Day could do it. So it's not just the best of a bad situation. It might be the best of any situation. This is better.
Do you think – does any part of you think we would have landed at this position even if Brian Hartline had not taken the South Florida job? Not that Ryan Day would say, get out of the one chair, kid, I'm calling plays for the playoff. But like last year, he took a larger hand in the game planning, clearly.
Yeah.
But Chip Kelly was still calling the plays. I think given Brian Hartline's inexperience still in this job, that even if he wasn't leaving, Ryan Day very well could have taken on not only more responsibility, but probably more play calling anyway. Do you think that would have been at all possible?
Yeah, and I think we'd be doing a month of like, well, Ryan Day's really calling plays anyway. Well, Brian Hartline's not really this. Well, you got to, like everybody knows, like people are saying that during the regular season. Well, Brian Hartline wasn't really calling plays anyway. It's like, okay, so like but he clearly was, at least for a lot of it. And then again, we would be trapped. We'd be bogged down. Now, maybe it wouldn't affect them, but you and I would be banging our heads against the wall of people thinking they know. Well, not. And now we have none of that. Now we have the no, but the real he said it. And it makes sense that he said it. So like we can at least have our heads wrapped around it. But like as far as how the team operated, I would imagine Ryan Day has a greater say in play calling in the postseason when he's not worried about culture, when he's not worried about recruiting, and when they have more time to prep. I would imagine that will be true from now until the moment Ryan Day no longer is a head coach at Ohio State. And I would imagine it's probably true for Kirby Smart and the Georgia defense, right? I would imagine like for any head coach who is an expert on one side of the ball but not the primary play caller, that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm sure Saban got pretty nitty-gritty with the defensive game plans when he was trying to win national championships. It just like they just happened to sort of coincide with Brian Hartline not being very experienced. Because I actually think like if this were Brian Hartline's like third season calling plays for Ohio State and he was ready to leave, I think maybe they would have tried to give it more of a go to try to like balance it out and let him continue to call plays. But he's not. He's called plays for 13 games. And I think throughout the year, right, there have been moments where it looked really good and moments where I think it was clear that he was still kind of developing his feel for things. But as long as he was sort of in that developmental stage, like this was bound to happen. And the fact that he's leaving, I think just sort of, threw some more jet fuel on a thing that was already going to get lit. So I think it'll be okay. Yeah, I just want to be careful, I guess, like, because I was also with you, like a strong proponent of Ryan Day giving up play calling. I don't want to, like, now that he's taking it back, like, it's fine. But I just think, like, the time of year does make it very different. Like, it's very different dynamics.
I think it's better than okay. I think it's ideal, actually. But the thing, you have to coach the whole team all year. And so that again, to me, is a bigger deal than to me, it really is, and it's a Michigan conversation. It's making sure that Ohio State is mentally and emotionally prepared to play its best game against Michigan. And if you are just in the meeting room with the offensive staff trying to figure out what the 3rd and 3 package of play calls should be, then I don't think you're preparing Ohio State mentally, emotionally, holistically to play its best game against Michigan in the last Saturday in November. So to me, it's as much as I think your question is important and the answer that he got about eyes up is important. I think eyes up 6 days of the week in the building is even more important than eyes up for 3.5 hours on Saturday. So
I think most weeks that's true, but I don't know. Like I mentioned to you and I mentioned to our Substackers, like the timeout that he called early in the Michigan game. And you have referenced many times in the past the timeout that Kirby Smart called in the Peach Bowl in 2022, right? It's like you have to make yourself available to make that call. And as long as you are, then I think it's fine.
And I do think so. It's like, this is even better. I think what this is better than a first-year play caller calling all the plays for Ohio State in the playoff. Is it better than last year? Is it better than an experienced play caller that Ryan Day 100% believes in, freeing up Ryan Day to call the timeout? No, it's not better than that. But I think if he misses calling a timeout, I think that's worth the trade-off of him making sure that the art of the play calling against the best teams they're going to face this year, that there is a plan and a rhythm and an art to that is just hard for any first-year play caller to develop. And I think Brian Hartline was still in the process of developing that. And I think Ryan Day will fall right back into that. Yeah. Right. And I think you will see better of like they did this, they did this, and then they set up the shot, as opposed to you thought for against Indiana, they got a little shot happy at times. And it's like, are you doing it for the sake of doing it, or are you actually building up to something? And so for now, all good. I thought the discussion, because he brought up the names Keenan Bailey and Billy Fessler, tight ends coach and quarterbacks coach, in a way of like, in your answer to your question, about like, I'm going to have to lean on them in a way that I thought, is Brian Hartline even going to be upstairs in the box? Because he said that like Brian Hartline is going to be the receivers coach. And I thought like, okay, maybe it sounds like Brian Hartline is just going back to what he was before, which is coaching a position group. And then everybody has a say. But maybe because who's up? Fessler's upstairs with Hartline normally. Is Keenan Bailey normally upstairs?
No, Keenan has been on the sideline. Keenan was like in Ryan's back pocket in the Big Ten championship game.
So maybe that means that Billy is going to help. Billy Fessler and Brian Hartline will be upstairs together. They'll help each other. And Keenan Bailey will be the guy on the sideline who, as stuff is happening, if Ryan's like, Keenan, make sure we get this ready for the next drive. I have to pay attention to what's happening with the defense here. And Keenan Bailey is next to him. But the way he phrased it, I said, as Ryan Day walked away from the podium, I shouted out a last question of, is Brian Hartline still going to be upstairs on game day? And he said, yes. Because I thought maybe it sounded like Keenan Bailey and Billy Fessler were going to be upstairs and Brian Hartline was going to be back on the sideline, just the way the conversation had gone. But no, that's not what he said. So it seems like at least that game day structure will remain the same.
I will leave an open mind on that potentially changing as the game gets closer. I do think you're on it with the roles though. And Billy Fessler will be communicating with Julian Sayin. So like the play comes in, and Billy Fessler will be the one in Julian Sayin's headset relaying the play to him, which I actually think maybe has been kind of the case all year. It was kind of explained when they lost the communications in the Michigan game. It was explained that like Billy Fessler could still talk to Julian Sayin via walkie-talkie. So that sounds like something maybe he's been doing all year. But I think you're definitely on it with what Bailey's role is here. Like he is, if Ryan Day can't be game planning on the fly between drives because he has to have his eyes up while Ohio State's on defense and on special teams. And I think that responsibility probably does fall to Keenan Bailey. But I don't know that Bailey has to be next to Ryan Day as he does that. I think he could be up in the booth where it is more sterile and things can be more organized, as Ryan Day said on Monday. So we'll see. I think the roles are defined. Where exactly everyone's going to be could maybe still be up for some change.
I don't think Ohio State fans should be nervous about it.
No, I don't. No, I'm not nervous about it. I don't think you should. Well, I mean, don't be nervous about your team going into a quarterfinal playoff game, right? Let's be like the appropriate amount of nervous. Don't be extra nervous because this is happening.
Yeah. Okay. You want to talk about right guard? Tegra Shabola has been a player that we obviously everybody around Ohio State has discussed ad nauseum all season. It's just funny how this stuff happens sometimes. Like there's sort of message board internet. Hey, does Tegra Shabola have an injury? There's never sort of like Ohio State never says it. And then we get a chance to talk about it again. And we sort of jump in half midstream of like the assumption of like, oh, so Tegra's hurt. So when will he be back? And it's like, he's definitely hurt. Like, can we have that said out loud by somebody officially with the team before? But Ryan Day said he's probably out a few weeks. So Tegra Shabola is not starting at right guard against Miami. That is definitive. That is injury related. It certainly may have been performance related also. So we got there. And it's one of those things. It's like, well, everybody on the message boards knew it or whatever, like, which is great. That's fine. But like, it's nice to have the guy in charge of the team. Like, let's officially make sure we're all on the same page here. So that means right guard will be either or possibly maybe both Gabe Van Sickle and Josh Padilla, and that who has been working in there. So that idea, Bill, again, it's not a silver lining of everything that goes wrong. Brian Hartline took a job. The right guard got hurt. That's the best thing possible for Ohio State. I hate that. I hate that approach to everything. But it's been the number one issue. I think it's been the most problematic of the 22 starting spots, and it's going to change. What is your opinion on what you expect from right guard play against Miami, assuming that it will be Gabe Van Sickle and Josh Padilla? Are you assuming a rotation at this point between those two guys?
I'm kind of just assuming Gabe Van Sickle is going to play.
Okay.
And then if for whatever reason that goes sideways, which it could because Miami has a very good defensive front, then maybe you'll see Josh Padilla rotate in. But I just thought the way that, Ryan Day sort of went out of his way to mention Josh Padilla. Even when we talked with Carson Hinzman, he kind of did the same thing, but it felt like everything was sort of layered with like we're moving with Gabe, we're moving forward with Gabe as our starting right guard. At least that's how I interpreted it. So I would expect to see him play most, if not all, the game against Miami, and it's going to be a heck of a test for him because there's some real dudes in the middle of that Miami defensive line. I felt like there was a question asked about Miami's edges, Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, who are excellent football players, but the tackles are good too. And the tackles actually, like some of the, like Justin Scott's a young guy who's like playing better as the season is worn on. Like this will not be an easy game for anybody on Ohio State's offensive line. So to step in there and make your first start when you're Gabe Van Sickle, going to be a heck of a thing. But I do think, even strictly based on performance, that this makes sense. Like we've had the conversation many times over. Should they just try something different there? And I think perhaps they would have gotten to this anyway. Now they're just sort of forced to. But I think the last couple of times, well, the last game certainly Gabe Van Sickle played better than Tegra, and maybe not the one before that where they rotated, but then like basically like 2 out of the 3 where he's rotated, I think he's played better than Tegra. So he would have earned a shot anyway, but now he's kind of going to get the whole job to himself.
Yeah, it's Josh Padilla had been the guy who had been rotating in, had been the 6th man up on the offensive line, and then he got hurt, and that's how. So Gabe Van Sickle was 3rd up at right guard, and now feels like he's going to be starting against Miami. Your 3rd string right guard is now the starter. But we also have seen this before. Josh Padilla is a 3rd-year player. Gabe Van Sickle is a 2nd-year player. We saw this with Luke Montgomery last year as a 2nd-year player, that like, it's just, can you ask a guy to do this in the back part of his 2nd year? And I think the answer is yes. I don't think this is outside the realm. The injuries are part of the game. If they were putting a true freshman in who had never played before, I think that's like, oh man, I don't know about this. If they had put in a guy who had been in the program 6 years and had never really sniffed the field, and it had been pretty well established, like, this guy is we're glad to have him on the team. He's not good enough to play here. And now he's playing. I don't think that would be great. But Gabe Van Sickle, when you are a 2nd-year guy like this and you are on the depth chart, it often is because they see you as at least a potential starter down the road. Yeah. So if you are accelerating your starting timeline, it is not a desperation, I can't believe this guy's in. It is not I can't believe we're starting this guy. This was never the plan. It's just a little early. I think that more often than not certainly has the chance to be fine. And I think you've been smart about the idea of, let's not assume that they're going to get right guard play that is twice as good as what they were getting before, just because it's the unknown. But it also honestly had been getting to the point at right guard of like, man, I don't know if it could be more problematic than this. Yeah. Like, is it time to just try something different because this is not working?
Yeah. I think it's good too. Like, he'll get to play, and Carson Hinzman mentioned this, right? He gets to play between a very experienced center and Carson Hinzman, and Phil Daniels at right tackle is not super experienced, but he's also not entirely green, and he's also been playing better, I think, the last couple of weeks too. So again, I'm not trying to make any of this sound like it's going to be seamless, because it's not. This is going to be, it would be a heck of a test if they had 5 offensive linemen who have played great all year. That's how good Miami is up front. But I think if you think about some of the things in Gabe's game, I think he's pretty athletic. He's very physical. He's bigger than Josh Padilla too, which is another reason why I think he might play more, because it's not only is Miami's defensive tackle group good, there's just a bunch of big burly dudes in there. And I think there could be some physical mismatches for Josh Padilla if he were to play in this game that maybe won't be true of Gabe Van Sickle, who's like a couple inches taller and I think like 10 or 15 pounds heavier than Josh Padilla is. So I've liked a lot of what Gabe has done. He's like every young offensive lineman, he's got to get better in pass protection, but he seems to have like a pretty good awareness of what's happening and where he needs to be and what his job responsibility is, and that can get you a long way too. And I'm sure Ohio State will find ways to kind of scheme him into some comfortable positions too.
Which I think is important. I actually do think sometimes when you have a veteran guy, Tegra Shabola started every game for a national championship team last year. Sometimes when you have a guy like that, it's like, no, he's okay. It'll be okay. Yeah, well, last game wasn't so great, but like it'll be fine. And you don't account for it. If their idea is like, okay, we're asking Gabe Van Sickle to make the first start of his career in the playoff against this Miami defensive front. So we have to help him. We have to assume he's going to have some trouble. We have to design, as opposed to, well, Tegra's a big physical guy. Like, let's see what he can do before, you know what I mean? I almost would assume the issue. There's going to be an issue. He's never done this. Then, maybe we're okay. And then it's like, no, you're not okay. So what are you doing now? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of what you said.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I think they will. Like, I don't know. We can, whatever. We're not doing our game preview now, but if that's like, get Julian Sayin out of the pocket, get some movement throws, get some quick game going, like just kind of like stuff we've been waiting to see from the offense anyway. It's like, well, if a new right guard kind of gets you down that road a little farther, like maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Julian Sayin. So we spoke on Monday morning with Ryan Day for about 20 minutes. And we spoke with Carson Hinzman, the center, Julian Sayin, the quarterback, Max Klare, one of their tight ends, and receiver Jeremiah Smith. And we talked to each of them for about 10 minutes each. And we had a previous news conference with Julian Sayin before he went to New York for the Heisman ceremony. And that was about Julian Sayin. That was more about your upbringing and how did you become a quarterback and your Heisman memories. And I thought in that news conference, like Julian Sayin was trying to like, hey, everybody, like just show a little more personality. And now it's game prep again. And Julian was like, nope. Julian Sayin shut it down, which is only an indication of locked in Julian Sayin. Like he does not want to engage in what was it like throwing a football on the beach in San Diego. That time is done. This is beat Miami time. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I certainly made note of the fact that he said he was watching both Miami and A&M prior to their game on Saturday. Like, I think he's pretty dialed in. The one thing that wasn't asked of Ryan Day or Julian, which I sort of regret, is like, is there anything about their dynamic in this postseason? Because Ryan Day is more involved with everything on the offensive side. Like, and that's like, I think Billy Fesser's a really good quarterbacks coach, but I'm wondering about like the 2022 Georgia game, right? Like the game that they got out of CJ Stroud there, where he was just a playmaking maniac. And it felt like just like Ryan Day was like instrumental in like bringing that out of CJ. Is there anything in this dynamic here that maybe Ryan can bring a little bit of that out of Julian?
Yeah. We'll have to ask that at Team Media Day in Texas. Yeah. Julian, anything different with you? It's like I moved into his house, but other than that, no, it's the same. You're like, what is this? All right, let's talk about Jeremiah Smith a little bit. We had not really talked with Jeremiah Smith that much during the course of the season. And the thing that came out of this is him. Ryan Day had described it previously, but Jeremiah Smith himself describing how worried he was about his ability to play in the Michigan game, that he was not sure that he was going to be able to play. He said it was a quad strain. So we had gone back and forth of like, is it a leg thing or a back thing? Like, is it looked like it made him stiff the way he walked coming off the field after the UCLA game when he only played in the second half, and then he did not play against Rutgers of those two games leading into the Michigan game. And so we have a confirmation from Jeremiah Smith that it was his leg. He said it was a quad strain. He said it's an injury that usually would keep you out 3 or 4 weeks. He said it happened in practice. So it's not back to this play when he got flipped on like the weird play against Illinois earlier in the season where he landed oddly on his back and people were wondering, is that something that's related to this? Ryan Day had kind of said, no, that's not it before, but it's nice to hear it straight from Jeremiah Smith. And that Jeremiah Smith said he played against Michigan. He was worried about, can I do it? Ryan Day then said, I told Jeremiah Smith he had to will himself to be healthy. And he also told Jeremiah Smith, we're going to beat Michigan with or without you. But it's sort of like you need to do this. And then he did it. This kid from Florida who is a football millionaire waiting to happen probably since he was the age of 12. Like, you knew this guy is special.
I was going to say he's already a football millionaire.
I was going to say billionaire, but I didn't want to be hyperbolic that he is a football billionaire waiting to happen. And he cared enough to like put it on the line in the Michigan game, which we have covered. But he said, I wasn't 100% for the Michigan game, but he said, I am 100% now. And he's playing this Miami team that one of his best friends, a receiver at his high school, plays for Miami. He said he and his friend, I believe is JoJo Trader. Is that the
JoJo Trader? Yeah.
That they had been like dreaming about this since they were 11 years old. Like, that's a great story. We seem perhaps on the precipice of getting the full Jeremiah Smith experience once again, and asked like, well, what is that going to be? And he said, you're going to see like the Jeremiah Smith from the beginning of the year when he was healthy. And that could be quite a thing, Bill Landis.
It sure could. Yeah. I tried to ask him, but it was like the fourth question about the injury. So I probably wasn't going to get much like how he felt limited at the end of the year. It was just clear that he didn't have the same explosion. He was still good. He scored against Michigan. He had a long catch against Indiana. It's not like he was rendered useless in the times that he was playing, but he clearly wasn't himself. And now it seems like he and Carnell Tate, who Ryan Day also said is healthy, are both probably going to be what we've come to expect of both those guys in this game against Miami. Carnell, not from South Florida, but certainly very familiar with a lot of the guys down there too, having played at IMG Academy, and I think he played for South Florida Express too. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun for those guys to be out there playing against some familiar faces. I think so both Jeremiah Smith and Kenyatta Jackson are from Chaminade Madonna down there, and I think there are 3 guys on Miami's roster who are also from that high school. So honestly, the only thing I'm worried about is that they're going to be like too charged up. Jeremiah all but confirmed to us. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be talking some smack too. Like, somebody asked, like, are you going to be worried about the emotions and like those guys like taking extra shots at you? He was like, well, I'm going to be doing that too. So no, I'm not worried about it. So no personal fouls, I guess, for Jeremiah should be the main goal here. But otherwise, I think you're going to get the full Jeremiah Smith experience.
Somebody in the chat has suggested like we're getting an offensive pass interference penalty out of Jeremiah Smith in this game. Like he is just going to run straight at a corner, shove that corner into the stands, and demand the ball on the first play of the game.
He flipped double birds to the crowds after he scored against Michigan. He's got to be careful, I think, to not, because he didn't get caught that time. He's got to be careful because I think it could be looking for that next time.
Yeah. So this is again, and we're going to write something on Substack about this. Like this guy occupies a very special place, I think, in Ohio State football history, in where we are in the modern game, in the NIL era, in wondering and at times questioning about the motivation of 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds who are already getting paid and have other big paydays ahead, and how much do they really care about these things? And this is a second-year college student who has been a star and a superstar since the moment he stepped on a college football field, and he seems like he cares as much as anybody could care, as much as some walk-on who grew up wearing Ohio State gear in their crib, and they've been an Ohioan all their life, and like this guy wants to put it on for this program and his teammates and his coaches and the people that he cares about. And so like that is quite a deal, and I think everybody understands it, but it's nice to hear him talk about it. We don't get to talk to Jeremiah Smith a ton, and it was a pleasure to hear a player as young and talented as he is care as much as he does.
Yeah, it was good to hear, because I do think there's a perception that has developed about, and it's not true, but college athletes get painted with a bit of a broad brush now because they are getting paid. And I would bet, I don't know this for a fact, but if I had to pick someone, I would bet that Jeremiah is the highest paid college football player, and that he takes this approach is pretty remarkable. And I think like does not only a lot for him in Ohio State, but I think a lot of college football players who probably unfairly get judged sort of like against their work ethic just because they're making a little bit of money now, or in some cases a lot of bit of money.
So we will do this with the defensive side of the ball after we speak with Matt Patricia and a couple defensive players. I would imagine you can catch that on Tuesday on the Bill and Doug feed. Writing a bunch of stuff leading up to the game at billanddougosu.substack.com. We will certainly continue to have videos and podcasts here on this current feed. Maybe not as much as we do in a typical week because it's Christmas, but we will do our very best to cover this team as completely as we can. And then we will both be in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. We'll fly down there on the 28th, have a full team media day on the 29th, and bring you what we think is a high level of Ohio State coverage. So we're excited for this. We're excited that you guys have allowed us to join you on this ride. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.